Good evening and welcome to Project Defending Life's first ever State of the Culture address on the day Roe v. Wade was overturned in the Supreme Court ruling of Dobbs versus Jackson. This day, 3 years ago, we also providentially celebrated the feast of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. And today we get to celebrate the feast day of St. John the Baptist, who as a preborn baby greeted Jesus with a leap in his mother's womb. Tonight, we will be hearing from leaders across New Mexico for an inspiring and informative evening as we explore the critical issues facing our culture today and the vital role we can all play in advocating for life. Before we begin, let us open up in prayer. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Heavenly Father, creator of life, we humbly come before you seeking your grace to build a culture that honors the sacred dignity of every human person from conception till natural death. Transform our hearts to see as you see, love as you love, and protect the vulnerable among us. Grant us a strong desire to defend the innocent, courage to speak truth with compassion, and strength to care for mothers, children, the elderly, and the suffering. May your Holy Spirit guide our communities, families, and leaders to choose life always. Amen. My name is Dominique Davis. I am the president and CEO of Project Defending Life, and I will be your host for the evening. It has been several years since our last webcast, so for those who are new and joining us, please allow me to introduce who Project Defending Life is. Our core purpose is to champion the life and dignity of every person in New Mexico. Our vision is to see a New Mexico where every human life is cherished, valued, and protected, and where all people have the opportunity to thrive. In simplest terms, our mission is to end the perceived need for abortion by addressing root causes through integrated care and services. We believe this ultimately cultivates a culture of life. Now, almost 6 years ago, New Mexico looked very different. We had just 6 abortion facilities in 2019 across the entire state, and women were increasingly choosing life. We saw abortion numbers trending downward, giving us hope that our culture was shifting toward valuing every precious life. But then in 2020, something devastating happened across the world, the COVID-19 pandemic. In just 3 short years, those 6 abortion facilities exploded to 26, and now soon to be 28 that have been added since this last legislative session. Meanwhile, we are down to only 25 birthing hospitals, with 2 more considering closing their maternity wards entirely. So let's think about that. We now have more places to end a pregnancy than to deliver a baby safely. Within this time, abortions skyrocketed from 4,000 in 2019 to 21,000 in 2023. This is a staggering 369% increase. For New Mexican women specifically, the numbers jumped from 2,800 to 7,000 abortions. Even with slightly better trends in 2024, we saw a total of 18,600 abortions. New Mexican women still accounted for 5,800 abortions. While the state is building new abortion facilities, we desperately need more labor and delivery units. Unfortunately, the broader picture is equally troubling. For the 7th year in a row, New Mexico ranks dead last in child well-being. And since legalizing assisted suicide in 2021, 100 New Mexicans have chosen to end their lives this way. But here's where our story takes a turn toward hope. Despite this overwhelming crisis, we've been fighting back and winning individual battles that matter eternally. In the last 3.5 years, because of your increasing support and prayers, 677 precious babies have been saved from abortion. Nearly 3 out of 4 women who come to our women's centers that are considering abortion choose life instead. And even better, our home visiting program has grown from serving just 3 families to now supporting 25 children and their parents. These aren't just numbers. These are real women, real babies, real families whose stories have been rewritten from tragedy to triumph because of you. I believe we have been able to achieve progress so quickly because of an integrated approach to address root causes for abortion. We do this through our women and family centers, When a woman faces an unexpected pregnancy, we need to be there and see her first, before Planned Parenthood and the abortion industry can prey on her fear and despair. Our La Luz Women's Centers function like emergency rooms for women in crisis. We do this by using the same online marketing strategy of Planned Parenthood. However, our digital center uses Google Ads as lifeboats to reach vulnerable women online before the abortion industry does. And these digital lifeboats save lives. In 2023, our Albuquerque Center alone served 441 women. 67% of these women were at risk for an abortion, and 72% of those women made a life choice. And I want you to remember this statistic because it's going to be really important when I mention the end of the webcast. But we know stopping individual abortions isn't enough. We have to change the culture itself. Our philosophy, therefore, is simple. Every woman is at risk for abortion throughout her entire life. One unexpected change can make abortion seem like her only option, unless she has 360-degree life-affirming support. And that's where our transformative care comes in. Through our home visiting program, we walk alongside women from pregnancy until their child is 5 years old. And this is the most vulnerable time for both mother and child. We connect families with education, child school readiness, employment, and parenting support they need to thrive by addressing both parent and child needs simultaneously. As St. John Paul II said, "As the family goes, so goes the nation, and so goes the whole world in which we live." We're not just saving individual lives. We're rebuilding the foundation of our society one family at a time. Our goal is ambitious, but I do believe it's achievable, and that is to provide continuity of care throughout a woman's entire life, creating a culture where she has the support needed to confidently make a life choice. The battle for life in New Mexico is far from over. Every day, our culture either supports life or undermines it. But I know if we continue to work together, we can rewrite more stories, transforming fear into confidence, despair into hope, and death into life. For me, the question isn't whether we can change New Mexico's story. I think the question is, how many lives will we save and transform while we do it? Stay tuned to the end as I share a special invitation for each and every one of you to continue partnering with us in seeing more abundant life in our culture today. And thankfully, as you all know, there are so many others diligently working to fulfill a life-affirming mission. We have one of those people, our first guest speaker, Miles Glotzner. I'm going to bring Miles to the stage and read you his bio. I've actually had the pleasure of working with Miles for many years now, not like intentionally, but we just passed each other on the sidewalk when him and his family would be praying in front of the abortion facilities for so many years. And now our children go to the same school. And now, Miles, you're doing something incredibly different on the other side of the pro-life spectrum. So, Miles believes that people facing death deserve better than institutional isolation, physician-assisted suicide, or dying alone. They deserve a home. This led him to launching Anora, the only nonprofit hospice home in Albuquerque, which offers a private room with all needed amenities and 24/7 caregiving at no cost. In starting Anora, he left behind a rewarding 11-year nursing career at the local VA. Savannah, his high school sweetheart, and wife of 17 years, is his biggest support in this mission, as are their 6 children. At the time of writing this, about a week ago, Anora has cared for about 16 people to their natural death. Miles, thank you so much for joining us. Please share a little bit with us about Anora, how it got started, and some challenges and wins that you've seen since you've been doing this.
Amazing. Thank you so much for the opportunity. What a blessing, what a gift to be with like-minded people. So grateful. So I'm going to start by talking about one of the gentlemen that we've cared for, Gerald. He was living in the Bosque in a tent with his sister Dorothy with end-stage lung cancer and a tracheostomy. As you can imagine, that'd be very difficult to manage. He came to Anora, where thanks to community, he and his sister were met with compassion and dignity. And rather than living the end of his life with despair, or isolated in a community, or even dying, isolated in a hospital or dying right there in the bosque or on the street. He was instead welcomed into a space of connection, a space of peace. He did not need a prescription to end his life, and he did not need a depersonalized death in an institution. He needed love, and a love that would literally be till death. A brief history of medical aid in dying. In 2012 was when we first started to see the cases and the push. And by the way, medical aid in dying is actually a euphemism of physician-assisted suicide. And it's the same way that they use and change language to mean a different thing or to sound sweet. They're doing the same thing now. But for the sake of this, I'll continue to use medical aid in dying at times in this discussion. So then in 2016, so it was unsuccessful in 2012, the New Mexico Supreme Court then decided, well, we can't make the decision, it's going to be legislature. And as Dominique already mentioned, then finally in 2021, it became legal. We're one of the few states where euthanasia or physician-assisted suicide is legal. There was an addendum, SB 471, which allowed providers to opt out for reasons of conscience. But a couple of key details about the legislature is we don't allow minors to end their life through assisted suicide. People from any state are actually allowed to come and receive medical aid in dying here. So similar, people will come across the border for that. And of course, they have to have a terminal illness with 6 months or less expected to live. Must be mentally capable, but of course that means different things. And there's only a 48-hour waiting period from the time they request the medication to the time that they can pick it up at the pharmacy and then end their life. They do have to self-administer, unlike in Canada where euthanasia actually involves the physician. At least at this point, we haven't gone so far, although I foresee it around the corner. Most people choose physician-assisted suicide because they're afraid of being a burden. They've done so much independently, they lose that, and they would rather die than to be cared for. Or they just don't have the community and the support, so they think that that's the best option. The reasons is because they feel that there's a loss of autonomy or dignity, that it would just be too depriving, too scary to face it, so they just end their lives instead. Or isolation, depression, untreated emotional, spiritual pain, and lack of access to quality care, right? If people were just treated, then it wouldn't be an option for them. So instead, Gerald was offered our home as a solution to medical aid in dying instead. So why and how does medical aid in dying continue to harm communities? Well, it normalizes death as a solution to suffering, but we know killing isn't compassion. It also undermines all the amazing progress we've made in the areas of palliative care, pain treatment, hospice work, community-based support. And as a society, really in the last few decades, we've made leaps and bounds regarding the way that we've thought and talked about death. And unfortunately, this is a step back because now, rather than facing death and facing the end, we can do the ultimate avoidance. And what we will sometimes do is we can just put ourselves to sleep. And that's exactly what people are now given the option to do. It also creates a two-tiered system where rather than people receiving care, they can just receive a prescription and end it all. It gives the message that life isn't worth living at the end and that suicide is a better choice. And unfortunately, pro-life people are behind the curve in the area of end of life. Often we avoid the topic altogether, similar to the culture. And while the culture has been talking about it for decades, we really haven't been. There's also only a few options for care at the end of life and very limited services for those who want a different option If they say MAID, if they say that they want medical aid in dying, then they're supported 100%, even against family wishes and despite other diagnoses that would be concerning, like mental health issues. There's no argument and discussion. The pro-life ethic often stops at birth and it leaves a vacuum at the end of life. So we've ceded the conversation to the culture because we haven't shown up in a meaningful way, while the community around us continues to isolate through the over-medicalizing of death, and the culture of death continues advancing to the hour of death, which is quite crucial. So we should care because every life matters, and we're called to accompany, not abandon. And MAID is not mercy. It's actually a failure of imagination and treatment and community as support. So being pro-life at the end of life means creating spaces like Anora and caregiving ministries where mercy has the last word. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Miles. And how can the community support you now that we have about 30 seconds left in helping create this culture of life around dying?
Huge. Thank you for asking. Well, don't be afraid to talk about it. You're welcome to come and tour the home that we have. It's in downtown Albuquerque. We'd be honored to show you around. You can email me and I'll get you connected. There are a lot of great resources for being pro-life at the end of life. I can get you connected to those. We always need more volunteers and we can always use more donors too.
Yes, and if I recall correctly, Miles, Anora is 100% staffed by volunteers, 24/7 care for those that you're serving at the end of the life. Is that correct?
We have the caregivers. Yes, exactly. We're totally dependent on volunteers, and we do have 3 staff, but we're doing things more behind the scenes. I can explain that more at a different time. So I'll leave that as a little snippet.
Well, thank you so much, Miles, for saying yes to serving people at the end of life and providing a dignifying death that really just cares for their mind, body, and soul. And keep up the great work. You have a good night.
Thank you all. Bye.
Sorry, guys, I'm also tech today. So, all right, next up we have Dr. Mark Langsfield, and he is the president of the St. Cosmos and Damian Guild of the Archdiocese of Santa Fe, the Catholic Medical Association. Mark and I also go way back. Him and his wife have been supporting Project Defending Life for many, many years. Even when I was in Students for Life, you guys were supporting Students for Life. And now as you were cutting back at work, you thought you would take on more work by serving in the role as president of the Catholic Medical Association. So let me read to you or introduce to you Dr. Mark Langsfield. After completing 9 years of surgical training, Dr. Langsfield joined the University of New Mexico Department of Surgery in 1991. Over the next 31 years, he maintained a very active and clinical practice in vascular surgery while serving in numerous leadership roles, including Chief of Vascular Surgery, Program Director of General Surgery Training, and Vice Chair for Surgery and Safety and Quality. A passionate educator, he has received multiple teaching awards throughout his career and has honored with the Lifetime Teaching Award for Surgery in 2017. In 2022, Dr. Langsfield retired from full-time practice and transitioned to part-time work at UNM to spend more time with his wife, Carol, their 6 adult children and 6 grandchildren, 5 of whom live out of state. Together, they now enjoy traveling to stay connected with family as the inaugural president of our newly formed Catholic Medical Association. Dr. Langsfield is committed to strengthening our local Catholic medical community and addressing some of the pressing socioeconomic and ethical challenges facing our state. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Langsfield. Please share a little bit with us about the Catholic Medical Association and the Archdiocese of Santa Fe, and what they've been working on now that we're up and running.
Great. Thanks, Dominic. Can you hear me okay?
I can. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for that nice introduction. So before I get into the specifics about healthcare in New Mexico, I'd like to tell you a little bit about the CMA, or the Catholic Medical Association, organization of Catholic healthcare providers in the United States with over 2,500 members. Goals for members in the subsidiary or local level units called guilds are: number 1, grow in faith; 2, maintain ethical integrity; and 3, imitate Jesus Christ by providing excellence in healthcare in accordance with church teachings. The national organization provides healthcare policy statements for its members on a multitude of topics such as abortion, in vitro fertilization, physician-assisted suicide, etc. Sound science, along with Catholic principles, are foundational to these policies. These policies can be used to influence decision-making by various groups. So, for example, the CMA persuaded the American Medical Association to keep its recommendation of opposing physician-assisted suicide. Similarly, a local guild in New York is now petitioning Governor Hochul in New York to veto physician-assisted legislation in New York. Unfortunately, here in New Mexico, for many years, we've had one-party rule in our government, allowing passage and implementation of laws inconsistent with our Catholic beliefs, such as abortion and physician-assisted suicide. Additionally, there are other non-faith related policies that are affecting healthcare in our state. In the last 5 years, we've had about 250 physicians leave New Mexico, the only state in the U.S. with a net physician loss. So why are we losing physicians? The financial website WalletHub, which some of you have heard, raised New Mexico last in states, number 50 in places to raise a family. Healthcare, crime, education, and socioeconomic factors all contribute. There are 5 main factors hurting healthcare here. Our state is number 2 in the number of medical malpractice cases per capita, and thus physician insurance premiums are very high. In the legislature this year, bills to address this did not get out of committee. Number 2, our state and Hawaii are the only states who have a gross receipts tax on medical receipts. In Hawaii, it's a 4.7% tax. Here in New Mexico, it's up to 8%. Legislation did pass this year to help alleviate this tax, but the governor vetoed it. Number 3, legislation to join 40 other states who have interstate compacts to allow easier licensing for physicians so they can help out in New Mexico or do telehealth. This was discussed in the legislature but did not pass, as medical malpractice cannot occur with interstate compacts. The trial lawyers did not like this. Number 4, New Mexico has the highest percentage of patients on Medicaid, which does not reimburse physicians adequately. One positive piece of legislation that did pass this year and was signed by the governor was the establishment of a Medicaid endowment fund, which can provide additional reimbursement to physicians for caring for Medicaid patients. Unfortunately, a huge issue on the horizon is that if the proposed federal legislation, the big, beautiful bill, is enacted, Medicaid funding is going to be slashed, which will particularly hurt our state. And finally, due to all the above reasons, physician specialists are very reluctant to come to our state, further exacerbating the physician shortage. So what can our local guild do, the CMA? First, I will be attending a national CMA leadership meeting this Thursday. Best practices for guilds will be highlighted, and I plan to take away some of these positive ideas for our guild. Second, with less than 20 members between our 2 state guilds, we need to become more active and visible to our fellow Catholic healthcare providers, encouraging their joining our guilds. Third, the Las Cruces Diocese is without a guild, and encouraging guild formation there would create a complete statewide CMA presence and enhance our influence on policies. And finally, we need to further build upon our current support and involvement in our community efforts, such as feeding the homeless and possibly volunteering in NORA. And since Miles talked about it, I will say the 3-hour volunteer course for NORA is great. I learned more about dying in that 3 hours than 30 years of practicing surgery. So in summary, I appreciate the invitation to speak on behalf of the CMA and hope to further champion policies that can improve in our state. And I would welcome any referrals for any of you who might know a Catholic or a Christian healthcare provider that might want to find out more about the CMA. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mark. I'm going to have you stay on for just a second. I might have a few questions. For those who, even if you're not Catholic, we do welcome Christian practitioners, healthcare workers as well, like non-Catholic Christians, I should say. We discuss things, bioethics, particularly when there's the new transgender, gender affirming care, as they call it, the challenges of practitioners and dealing with that. And it is because of the Catholic Medical Association Guild and the Archdiocese, we now have a student Guild, right, at the University of New Mexico. And that has about 20 students at this time. Never has, I think, the University of New Mexico have a such a positive pro-life presence in the medical field with medical students. And it's been such a great support system. I know that the Guild has been interested in cultivating that and making sure that we're supporting our new physicians and other healthcare workers. Directly, is there any way, how can anybody contact the Catholic Medical Association to get involved?
Well, we do have the national website is called cathmed.org. They can direct you to our website. Our actually name is called the St. Cosme St. Damian Guild of the Archdiocese of Santa Fe. Our secretary, Ashley Smalley, has multiple cards. But if anybody wants to contact me, I will get them in touch with Ashley. Even though we only have 17 members, we have about 90 people on our listserv who want to come to our meetings, possibly because, as you said, we discuss topics relevant to a lot of different people, and you don't have to be a member to come to our meetings. So at this point, I would just say get in touch with me or go to cathmed.org, and they can put someone in touch with me as well.
Thank you so much, Mark. I appreciate you coming on this evening and sharing more about the Catholic Medical Association and how we're working within our own diocese and throughout the state to provide better care. You have a good night.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. At the end of this webcast, I will be sending out an email with everybody's information. So if there is something that you want to be a part of or learn more information about, you'll have the ability to access their information. Next up, we have Jody Hendricks. She is the executive director of the New Mexico Family Action Movement, where she champions biblical values in public policy and defends faith, family, and life throughout New Mexico. Though she once avoided politics, don't we all? God redirected her path to advocacy work. She now embraces passionately, mobilizing communities and engaging legislators on policies protecting families, religious freedom, and sanctity of life. An accomplished author and speaker, Jody wrote the award-winning book, #NoFilter, Unmasking the Woman God Created You to Be, which earned the International Impact Award in Women's Empowerment, Illumination Book Awards Gold Medal in Bible Study, and Christ Lit Book Award for offering an enlightening journey that promises to resonate deeply with countless women. Through her writing, she empowers women to overcome insecurity, societal pressure, and past wounds while embracing God's given purpose. A licensed mental health counselor, come to the CMA, Jody holds degrees from Bob Jones University and Wayland Baptist University, and she specializes in helping women navigate anxiety, depression, and mood disorders. Beyond her professional roles, Jody founded Crowned Ministries, directs Thrive Women's Ministry at her church, and creates elaborate wedding and birthday cakes. A wife and mother of 4 from Albuquerque, she recently conquered her fear of motorcycles and now enjoys the open road. Through policy work, ministry, and writing, Jody powerfully advocates for truth, faith, and family values. Thank you again, Jody, for being on here today. It's always such a pleasure to work with you and see what you're doing at the legislature and during the legislative session. Tell us a little bit about your organization and what you've done this legislative session.
Well, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for inviting me to speak here this evening. It's an honor to be able to stand with so many who are committed to defending life and families here in New Mexico. New Mexico Family Action Movement equips and empowers families, churches, and citizens to protect life, to defend parental rights, and to advance biblical values in culture and policy. Now, over the past year, we have seen unprecedented attacks on the culture of life in New Mexico. Our legislature has passed some of the most extreme and dangerous laws in the nation, laws that undermine parental authority. They devalue human life, and they insert radical ideology directly into our schools and our communities. So let me briefly walk you through just a few of the bills that have done some real harm, but then I'm going to follow that up with some of the victories that we've had that you may not realize. So some of those bad bills you might be familiar with from 2023 legislative session. We saw House Bill 7, the Under the title of the Healthcare Freedom, House Bill 7 made it illegal for parents, school boards, or local governments to take any action that might interfere with a minor's access to abortion or gender transition services. This means that parents can be left in the dark while schools and state-funded entities are empowered to facilitate irreversible decisions in our children's lives, all without consent or accountability. It's not freedom, it's control. We also had Senate Bill 13, which doubled down by shielding providers of abortion and transgender services from out-of-state legal action. This made New Mexico basically a safe haven for radical medical procedures, attracting vulnerable minors from other states while silencing any attempt at justice from parents who have been left powerless. This bill had essentially built a legal wall between parents and their children when it comes to life-altering decisions. And then Senate Bill 397 passed in 2023 as well, and it expanded the school-based health centers. And what it did in expanding those health centers is it now provides reproductive and gender-affirming care directly in our schools. No parental notification is required. There's no transparency. It's just direct access to services that carry irreversible consequences. And if that wasn't enough, then just look at our 2025 legislative session and the capital outlay bill. Very last minute, quite sneakily, the governor snuck in $10 million of our taxpayer money to be allocated to build yet another abortion clinic, this one up north in our state. There was no public input. There was no transparency. It put our legislators in a horrible position because they had worked so hard on providing funds for their communities in this capital outlay bill. And last minute, this was snuck in there. And it's just another sign that the culture of death is being embedded into the infrastructure of our state. But like I said, I'm not here just to ring the alarm and tell you all the bad news. I want to share some good things that we can celebrate today, especially as we're considering the anniversary of the overturning of Roe. There's some shifts happening here in New Mexico, and we saw this last legislative session. This year, in 2025 session, we were successfully able to stop dangerous library bills that would have made it even easier for our children to access sexually explicit, ideological driven material. Books and programs that confuse identity, that normalize abortion, and undermine a biblical view of life and gender. These bills failed because parents stood up. Because people like you said, not in our libraries, not on our watch. So that was a huge win for us this session. While we see progressive legislators trying to continue to push the culture of death onto our children and into our state, the conservative voice is standing up and saying, no, not now, not on my watch. Now, we did run many good bills this session, and while many of them didn't gain traction, there was something good that came from them, something actually very powerful. You see, they began to shift the narrative. We introduced life-affirming legislation that framed the conversation around compassion, support, and truth, not judgment or shame. We talked about the women in crisis. We talked about the child who deserves protection and the family who needs support, not state control. And I want to tell you, it is working. The narrative is beginning to shift from rights to relationship, from access to accountability, and from choice to compassion. But make no mistake, threats to the family in New Mexico are growing, and we need to be aware of them. Parental rights are under siege in our schools and our healthcare system. Children are being targeted with confusing ideologies under the guise of inclusivity. And government systems continue to disincentivize strong family units by rewarding dependency over stability. That's why New Mexico FAM is not just fighting bad policy, we're building a better future. We have launched several initiatives that are meant to help support the family and see them thrive the way they're supposed to here in New Mexico. We've launched our Protect Our Kids initiative, which is meant to equip parents with the tools to navigate and to challenge harmful curriculum and school policies. We're launching the Family Table podcast, which is our weekly conversations to restore a biblical worldview in family, life, and education. We're hosting our 3rd annual Family Fun Festival, of which you can see boxes behind me of backpacks that we're going to be giving away this year. Our Family Fun Festival is our community event that provides real support, school supplies, connection points for families who feel maybe forgotten or overwhelmed. We've also launched our Christian Action Network, mobilizing churches to be not just spiritual leaders, but cultural influencers. And of course, we always have our Legislative Action Center, which is translating policy into plain language so that citizens can speak up boldly and intelligently. So I want to leave you with this, friends, we are not powerless. In fact, we are positioned for influence. This is not just about stopping bad bills. This is about raising a standard, about casting a vision for what New Mexico can become when families are strengthened, when children are protected, and life is celebrated from the womb to the elderly. The culture of life will not rise on legislation alone. It rises when families are supported, when truth is spoken, and when love leads the way. So we are here at New Mexico Fam. We are here for all of it. And we invite you to stand with us, not just to resist the darkness, but to build the light in New Mexico.
Thank you so much, Jody. That is so wonderful to hear after hearing, so many bad things that kind of happened in the legislative session, to hear so many good things that you were able to do while you were up in Santa Fe, and just throughout the entire year, not stopping at just the legislative session, but really making sure these efforts are going all year round. That is not easy. I think you probably have the worst job out of all of us. So thank you so much for your courage and boldness in leading life-affirming politics and policy in New Mexico. You have a good night.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we did have as our speaker lineup Mark Cavalier from the Southwest Coalition for Life. He's also runs Guiding Star El Paso. He couldn't make it this evening, so we have the best replacement for him. She's not even a replacement. She is equal and probably above Jessica Cifuentes. Let me bring her on. All right. So Jessica, she has promised me, by the way, the best tacos in Juarez or El Paso in the next few weeks. But until then, let me read you her amazing bio and then hear from what is happening in the borderland in Texas and Las Cruces area. Jessica is a dedicated activist for the sanctity of life and the president of the Southwest Coalition. She's a champion for holistic women's healthcare and empowering life-affirming choices. Despite facing early setbacks in pro-life activism, her resilience led her to taking on significant pro-life initiatives for the coalition, including expanding 40 Days for Life vigils, establishing medical mobile buses and maternity home operations, pioneering care kits to combat the chemical abortion pill crisis. A catechist, homeschooling mother of 4, wow, I think that's the most impressive one, Jessica, and successful entrepreneur. Her faith journey began as a student of Father Richard Thomas. Jessica is also a sought-after consultant for pro-life efforts across Latin America and has been asked to speak at both national and international conferences. Thank you so much, Jessica, for coming to represent Southwest Coalition for Life and Guiding Star El Paso. It always seems that we're all doing very similar things at the same time without each other knowing. And it's just so great to know that you guys are there in this large part of where there's no access to care or support when it comes to the life issue. So please share with us a little bit more.
Okay, thank you so much, Dominique, and thank you everyone for sharing. I'm really impressed with a little bit from everybody. Jody, I'd like to add that yes, the not on my watch and not with my tax dollars, I think is what we need to add to that, because I know that Mark was asked to give an update on where we are with the Doña Ana County abortion facility, and you did mention that that there is a second $10 million. Let me go ahead and put my timer on because I definitely don't want to go over time there. So with that, the question is, well, what do we know? So we know that the ground break, they plan to break ground this fall. We also know that they are using the tax dollars to fund billboards to recruit abortionists and future Texas clients. And we know this because as you're driving from El Paso to Las Cruces, you can see these billboards that are, advertising the abortion care for women that are Texas residents. And why is that important? It's really important that we assure that state-funded programs are not disproportionately serving out-of-state residents, and that those funds are staying in to, better the community. And as Dr. Mark was saying, to not be so low on the rank of one of the places that you don't want to live, because they're not using the tax funding to increase this, to better the schools and, lower crime rates and whatnot. What's another thing that we've learned is that about 20 years ago, Planned Parenthood wanted to build an $8 million abortion facility in Austin, Texas. And a gentleman by the name of Chris Dans, a pro-lifer himself, and also a business owner, he ran a concrete company, got wind of it and found out, what their intentions were. And because he's so well, known in the community of the concrete world, he reached out to other concrete suppliers and informed them that, what Planned Parenthood's intentions were and how this was an absolute, atrocity, not only to the community, but to them as families and to the society itself. And he, took the time, made phone call after phone call, got them all up to speed on what Planned Parenthood's intentions were. And he didn't stop there. What he did is, being a concrete expert, he knew that if he could just convince the people in the local community that would be fine, but these builders would, call outside of the local community and, reach other contractors. And what he knew is that concrete's, the life expectancy of a concrete, the truck is 2 hours. So what he did is he looked out and mapped out the 2-hour radius and started making phone calls and let them know that they did not want this. They did not want to be a part of this build. They didn't want bad business either, because if they were to take the contract, then they would be exposed, as these are the people who were providing the providing the concrete for the build. So he was very proactive in that. And what that did for us is it helped us to replicate that. And where are we now and how are we responding to that? So Mark organized a dinner, and we invited, I think 200 fellow Las Cruces residents to participate in that dinner. We informed them of what was happening and how this money was going to be used to build another fifth abortion clinic there in the city of Las Cruces. And this is a city that has 115,000 residents citywide, and I think county is 225,000. So the need for a fifth, and not only fifth, but a mega abortion facility is outrageous. As we know that there are more places, as you said, Dominique, that there are more places where you can go and abort than you can to give birth. So what did we do is we wrote out these letters. We had them printed. We had them ready to go. And what we did is we invited these families over. We gave them the information, and over 30,000 letters were sent out to concrete companies and local building suppliers. And that also to include 1,000 petitions that were signed, where we did inform the public of what the intentions were and how their tax dollars are being used. Because I don't think that people don't care. I think people just don't know. And we need to take the time to educate them and inform them, and then give them the knowledge, because we know that knowledge is power. And if they have that, then they're able to speak up and say, wait a minute, I don't want my tax dollars being used in this way. So those are some of the proactive things that we've done. And then with that, we had our very first prayer rally outside of the future site of the facility. And what we noticed is that the neighboring businesses were not happy with that. They did not want us there. They definitely don't want bad business. They don't want to have, their customers driving up to their facilities and being disillusioned, or not disillusioned, but being what they say, harassed. And truly, we're not harassing. We stand out there with signs that say, pray to end abortion. That is it. And that was the very first one that we did. And then we started our first 40 Days for Life vigil campaign outside of the Future site. And again, with people that were going out to pray, round the clock. We have a vigil from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. And those people are volunteers. They sign up, they go out there, and they are informing the public that the community of Las Cruces does not want this. We do not want it. So we're getting ready now for our second 40 Days for Life campaign. And we're super excited about that because we've got a lot more people signed up because more people are aware of what's going on. And then come August the 23rd, we're getting ready for another rally outside of the vigil. And what we're doing is we're reminding people we need to continue to send out those letters. We need to make those contacts, and we need to let the community know that they are not welcome. We do not need a fifth abortion facility, and that we don't want our dollars being used in that way. And I think on the more what is it that we're doing on that end is the proactive, but what do we know about women and what do we know about families? Well, we know that according to, I think 59% of women that are seeking an abortion are already mothers. And what does that tell us? It tells us that women, in many cases, have suffered traumatic birth experiences. And I mean, I personally have talked to some women that are very discouraged by having, that second birth because they're not feeling that their first birth went the way that they wanted to. So what did that cause? What did that inspire us to do? And that really is now in our El Paso branch, we do have a beautiful 3-wing birth center where we have seen 32, I think is the number, where at 32 midwives have brought 32 babies into this world in the most beautiful setting. And that's just one of the, the beautiful things about what Guiding Star is able to do. And that is our goal, is to be able to offer that service to women, that they can come into the center from their very first ultrasound, the continuum of care, and be able to then, go through the entire pregnancy to lactation classes with our lactation counselors, one-on-one sessions, to as far as the intro to womanhood, which is for mother-daughter, to then educate the mother on how to have that conversation with her daughter, to teach her the dignity and the sanctity of life and how her body is beautifully and wonderfully made. So those are just some of the exciting things that we're seeing and that we're currently working on right now.
Thank you so much, Jessica. I love your guys' approach. Of course, it mirrors very much what we do here in Albuquerque of creating this 360-degree life-affirming care and support. Mm-hmm. When it comes to the Doña Ana abortion facility from a few legislative sessions ago, has there been any disruptions in the progress of building it because of your efforts, or has that not really, what's been going on there?
I wish I could tell you that yes, it has. I don't know how much of an impact we've made, but I do know that we have gotten letters back from some of the suppliers saying, please stop sending us letters. Our hope and our goal is that that they will feel, convicted and say, we don't want this, even if they are pro-abortion and they stand firmly on, a woman's right to choose. Even then, we think that if we just put enough pressure, and very politely, if we put enough truth and pressure, that they would feel that conviction of never mind, we don't want this, because we have seen that with the business the surrounding businesses come out and say, can you guys please leave? We don't want you here. And our answer to that is absolutely. As soon as they leave, we will leave. So if you guys put a little bit of pressure on them, then we will gladly leave and we will, not come back if they don't come back. But if they're here, we will be here.
Well, we are praying for those efforts. I think if anybody could do that, it is you guys in the Southwest. And we are praying for you up here. And if there's anybody watching from Las Cruces area, please go and support Southwest Coalition for Life and Guiding Star El Paso. Thank you so much, Jessica. You have a good evening.
Thank you. Likewise. God bless you.
All right. Next, we have our last and exciting speaker, Mick Rich. He sent me, I asked for his bio, and he sent me like a 17-page CV.
Way too long. It should have been just, I was born in 54, right?
No, I think it's great. So I'm going to, I shortened it. I did have to put it into ChatGPT and be like, do the highlights. And I think we got it because you do have a great background. Mick Rich brings over 4 decades of construction industry leadership and political experience to today's discussion. As president of Mick Rich Contractors since 1988, he has built one of New Mexico's most respected construction companies, specializing in complex federal projects for the Department of Defense, Department of Energy, and national laboratories. Rich's impressive portfolio includes high-security nuclear weapon facilities at Los Alamos and Sandia National Laboratories, historic renovation of the 225-year-old San Felipe de Neri Catholic Church, and New Mexico's first Platinum LEED certified building. His work has earned numerous excellence awards from Associated Builders and Contractors in recognition for groundbreaking projects worldwide. A licensed contractor with a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering from Oregon State University, Rich maintains multiple professional certifications and serves as an expert witness in complex construction litigation. His expertise spans from nuclear facilities to innovative manufacturing plants and historic preservation. Rich demonstrated significant public service as commissioner of the New Mexico Labor Industrial Commission and as the Republican Party nominee for U.S. Senate in 2018 and 2020. His industry leadership includes serving as chairman of Associated Builders and Contractors and board positions with Catholic Charities and Albuquerque Economic Development. Currently, Rich shares his insights through radio and television programs with On the Road with Mick Rich and To the Point with Mick Rich, providing political commentary and analysis. He's also published guides on commercial building maintenance and contractor relations. Rich's unique combination of construction expertise, business leadership, political experience, and media presence makes him a compelling voice on infrastructure, economic development, and public policy. And with that wide range of expertise that you have, I wanted you to come on here and wrap up everything that we've heard today.
Oh,
Just kidding. But summarize within the last year, some challenges and some opportunities and wins for New Mexico.
Dominic, thank you. I appreciate the invitation to be part of this. Also, for those tuning in, thank you. I appreciate you sharing a few moments of your time. I just want to say I've known Dominic for a number of years. Marion and I have supported Defending Life. And as I was preparing for this, I was thinking about Dominic, and I was thinking, as I'm writing my notes, and I realized what came to mind is that Dominic is a modern day Joan of Arc, and she's charging into the darkness in our state. And then what comes is, then what's our role? What are we supposed to do? What can we do? And I thought about it, and it is our job to carry that light along with her. She's got the beacon, but we've got our own candle that we're marching forward into the darkness. And that's what our role is. When you listen to what I've done over the years, the greatest thing that I've done is it's been building the communities in New Mexico, whether it's out in rural New Mexico, whether it's in Albuquerque, but we have worked to build the communities. And I take great pride in that. And how did I get to where I'm at today? It's a convoluted path that wasn't always straight, neither is yours. But what I want to say is that if I can end up being the candidate for the U.S. Senate, then who knows what you can do? And that's what we're here to talk about. The first item is that we care. I care. And one of the things that I thought about was that I don't think those legislators in Santa Fe and Congress, a lot of them don't care about us. They care about their agenda. And we're only a means to achieving their agenda. That's not what our families are about. We care about we care about your family. And that's what it's about. This is what we are for. It's about our children's education. They're not a tool of the teachers union. We're about healthcare, that healthcare should be there to support families, not to support those people in Santa Fe and Washington where our children are just part of their agenda. It's about good paying jobs to support families. It's not about government handouts to support. We're not dependent on the government. We want parents to be independent, to support the families. So they're not beholden to anybody in how they raise their families. They are the parents of their children. And then lastly, not lastly, but next, is that I think it's important that we celebrate life. Too often, especially when it's just painful to hear tonight of what it takes to what we're defending against. One abortion clinic after another, about the healthcare system that believes that they have the power to choose what the sex is of our children. They don't. So we need to celebrate life. And what I talk about this is we need to show our legislators, whether they're in Santa Fe or members of Congress, or whether it's a school board, or whether it is, the city council or the county commission, that we celebrate life. We need to send them photographs of when we're celebrating a birth, a marriage, the successes of our lives, that we need to send that to our legislators. Let them know that it's not just about legislation, it's about our families. Make them part of our families. Make them realize that this bill just isn't about, a piece of paper. It's about our lives. And that's what it's about. And it's exciting. And then I also want to share with you that when we talk about we care about your family, but we can do it individually as well. I've had some great opportunities. I can remember on the campaign trail, there I was at the Trump rally. I'm handing out cards for people to sign up for my Substack, mickrich.substack.com. I'm handing it out. A young lady said, what do you believe? What's your position on veteran suicide? I'm surrounded by hundreds of people, and I'm trying to have a personal contact with this lady, this mother. And I said, call me. And she called me, and I was on the phone for an hour talking about what happened to her husband, the brutality that she went through, and the lack of support that she had with the VA. Her husband was all alone, and he took his own life. And when I got done, I said, you realize that I am not a senator. I'm only running to be a senator. And she goes, I know. But I know that you care. And that's what's important to me, that I'm not alone. And you can do this too. And it happens in just crazy situations. I'm walking into Riley's auto parts, and a young Black woman's walking out. You could see that she's in turmoil. I got my windshield wipers, blades. I'm walking out, and there she is. She's standing behind her car, almost in tears. And I walked up and I said, are you okay? She said, no, I'm not. I said, I want you to know I care about you. She goes, nobody cares about me. I said, I care. This is what we need to do, is we need to let people know wherever they're at in our lives. We may not know them, but we can let them know we care. And this is what tonight is about, is that we care about you and your family, your neighbor's family, and we're not going to let the legislatures take control of our family. Hey, I appreciate this opportunity, Dominic. Appreciate for you tuning in tonight, and thank you very much. And again, you can sign up for my articles at mickrich.substack.com. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mick, just to have your perspective from so many different areas in life and the stories that you've just shared. I really love throughout this whole program, we've all just really been talking about relationships, seeing the person for who they are. And I think at the end of the day, we want to just be able to see Christ in each and every person and love them as we would just love Christ himself. And I just appreciate so much of the work that you do professionally and on the side. Well, not really on the side, but with your media stuff. Thank you for coming on tonight. You have a good evening.
Thank you very much.
All right. We have heard significant challenges and triumphant wins tonight. I am so thankful to work alongside these great leaders and their communities throughout our state who are creating a society that truly values life and helps everyone to thrive. As we close this annual address, I want you to partner with Project Defending Life through our Culture of Life Ambassador Program. So together we can have a greater impact that is more timely in the situation that we find ourselves in. As you have now learned, this crisis is not ending anytime soon. And in this overarching problem that's been touched on tonight, one thing that Project Defending Life has observed recently in particular is a disconnect between the church and women at risk for abortion. Despite the church being one of the most critical and information and support of systems for healthy families and faith and values, when it comes to abortion and other life issues, women do not consider the church a safe and trustworthy place. Research shows that nearly 4 in 10 women who had abortions were churchgoers when they ended their pregnancy. 70% of women who had abortions claim a Christian religious preference. 43% were attending church monthly or more at the time of their abortion. And most telling, 52% of regular church-going women who had abortions say the church had no influence on their decision. While these stats are only, and just remember, these stats are only from 2015. Earlier tonight, I asked you to remember a statistic that 63% of women we served in 2023 were at risk for abortion. Well, this year alone, in 2025, 95% of the women we have served so far are at risk for abortion. This means they are considering abortion as an option, they are determined to obtain one, or there are significant socioeconomic factors that can lead to an abortion decision. Of the 95% of women we served who were at risk for abortion, 45% of them considered themselves Christian. When I recently ran those numbers, I found it incredibly disheartening. And I looked back and can remember of all the different times that I've been in the patient room or from stories shared with me in the patient room of young Christian women crying and full of despair about their unexpected pregnancy and how they truly felt like abortion was the best option because they just couldn't see life as a mom right now. We believe the Culture of Life Ambassador Program, implemented and grown within each parish, is a solution to bridge this unfortunate gap. This program was developed in response to Archbishop Wester's call to action from his letter to the faithful on the Feast of the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary in 2023. Along with Bishop Wall and Bishop Baldacchino, he consecrated the diocese to the hearts of Jesus and Mary so that all New Mexico would be supported by divine grace in our efforts to promote and protect human life. The Archbishop's letter has a 3-part call. First, to pray on behalf of abortion vulnerable families and the unborn. Second, to educate the community about life issues. And third, to act with concrete support for families in need. His goal is to, quote, move our state of New Mexico to have a change of heart when protecting human life in the womb. The Culture of Life Ambassador Program offers parish support, and it was actually started because Prince of Peace's Sanctity of Life group wanted to have a more impactful presence at their parish, a desire that we have heard from other parishioners at other churches. So with Prince of Peace's help, we have designed this program to provide parishioners concrete ways to live the gospel through Project Defending Life's values of faith, sacrificial service, perseverance, relevance, and woman-centeredness, as well as to ensure women and families know their support and community at their church if they're at risk for an abortion. This program also goes beyond abortion to include families welcoming new babies and care for those who are suffering from miscarriage or infant loss, and it adapts to each parish's unique needs. So maybe you can't organize meal trains or gift baskets to expecting families or families that have just delivered a baby. But a little card in the mail speaking words of blessings is just as much of an encouragement. And maybe you can't organize a Sanctity of Life Mass, but you can have mass intentions read for Project Defending Life and abortion vulnerable women. And another example is maybe you can't all organize childcare at every mom's group, but you can do maybe an annual parents' night out. With this program, the possibilities are endless. And something that I really love about this program is that it also encourages parish-wide engagement. So by uniting the entire parish in prayer and action for PDL and the unborn, again, this includes things like mass intentions, consecrations, organizing acts of service like baby bottle campaigns or drives for diapers and wipes. It can include raising funds that go directly to saving more babies. We believe the impact of this program transforms parishes into life-affirming sanctuaries where vulnerable women and families know they have a community ready to support them through their most difficult decisions. It answers the Archbishop's call while providing practical, gospel-centered action that saves lives. Our goal this year is to have 10 Culture of Life Ambassador programs running in the next 12 months. We will accompany you along the way with a how-to guide to get you started. And this week, I will be emailing you this information. And so I hope tonight that you prayerfully consider bringing this to your church. And my next hope and goal is to announce at next year's State of the Culture address that these 10 programs have started and share all of the great work that you've been doing. By partnering with us, you can directly cultivate an active and visible culture of life in your parish. You will immediately become a part of that 360-degree life-affirming support for women and families in need for generations to come. And I theorize that our women's centers will see less Christian women considering abortion because of this program. And I truly hope to report that very trend next year. One last thing before we close for the evening. While the Culture of Life focuses on the beginning of life, it can easily incorporate end-of-life issues. Anora's and Project Defending Life's desire is to unite us under this umbrella to care for the dying in the most holy and dignifying way because, as we know, every life matters. Thank you again for joining us for our first annual State of the Culture address. I look forward to seeing you next year and hopefully a few times before that. If you have not yet heard, our 8th annual gala is featuring keynote speaker EWTN and Fox News Raymond Arroyo on Thursday, September 18th at Marriott Pyramid North. That is always such a tongue twister for me. For more ways to support Project Defending Life or to get involved, please go to our website at www.defendinglife.org. May God bless you all and all that you do for New Mexico. Good night.